Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Zach.
And I'm Seth.
And we're the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right. We are the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right.
We have a mail call today.
We've got mail, it never fails. Makes me wanna wag my tail. Something, 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 mail.
Oh man, we should introduce a new character into the podcast. I know we're
Just be an inanimate
episode
object.
300. What?
Just be an inanimate object like at Blue's Clues.
No. This podcast is grounded in reality. So we need a mailman character to deliver our mail.
Like Mr. McFeely.
Maybe we should go with something like that, like an iteration
Mr.
of
McFeel's good.
Mr. McFeel's good. Mr. McFeel's me.
No!
Mr. McFeel's me's here. Hey there, everybody. It's like the Family Guy guy.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, we have a mail in from a listener. We have Ian, a fan of the podcast, reached out to us and wrote us a letter, a physical letter. We're always impressed when fans mail us letters through the postal system, and we get letters. We usually then try to do a change of address form because we don't need bill collectors knowing where we live. But Ian wanted us to do an episode on Star Fox Adventures.
That's right.
He also said that he loved the show and was very excited for this episode.
Well, I don't think he said that, but
I'm paraphrasing.
He read between the lines.
Paraphrasing.
Well, Ian, we hope we do this episode justice for you, and if we don't, it was great having you as a fan for those episodes that we did.
Thanks for listening to the couple episodes that you did, and we're good to go. Let's move on. See you later.
Anyway, Seth, what have you been recently playing?
So recently I've been playing 007 First Light.
Ooh.
And it was released back May 26, 2026.
Okay.
And you play as James Bond.
Cool. 007, in fact.
It is developed and published by IO Interactive, who are the same folks behind Hitman. And it is if you took the game Hitman and you mixed it with Watch Dogs, and that is 007 First Light.
Cool.
I've been told that it is a relatively short game if you play through it. Like, the main story is about 15 hours if you play through it.
Oh, okay.
If you're good at the game, I think I'm a quarter of the way, I guess. I'm about 5 hours in, maybe over a quarter. And it's been pretty good. I really enjoy it. I think they did a really good job with the tutorial. It's fun. It does it in like montage sequences, and you just are tackling like very specific things during those sequences. And then the first few chapters have been really fun in regards to like it feels like a structured Hitman game, and you could do different things than what a Hitman can do. You could still just go off the rails and do whatever you want, but you could also use your gadgets instead of your Hitman abilities to be able to infiltrate buildings and stuff like that. So you have like your watch that can sabotage electronics or shoot darts, and you can interact with the environment, but in a very stealth Hitman kind of variety. So a lot of fun. I've been really enjoying 007 First Light. I would recommend, if you enjoy Hitman / Watch Dogs kind of games, then maybe check it out. It is MSRP at $70 right now, so you may want to wait for a sale if you're strapped for cash, because like I said, if you play it pretty dedicatedly, you'll probably beat it pretty quick, but that's your wallet to manage. But I've been having fun. So that's 007 First Light. And just as a FYI for those who are Bond fans, I did talk about this before it came out with Josh on the Still Loading podcast.
Yes.
And that the game First Light takes place before and during the time that James Bond earns becoming a 007, except it's set in a modern day. So it would be like if today James Bond became James Bond. It's a little bit in the future because there's like future tech, but
it's like James Bond future tech, I assume, where it's like still modern age, but also there's lasers.
Yeah. Bond has like this big AI thing, which is smarter than today's AI. So
yes.
That type of things, but I'm sure still sketchy.
I haven't played the game yet, but I saw some footage and stuff from it. I do like that Bond isn't based on any particular like actor. It's actually based on the illustrations of Ian Fleming, so it has the distinctive face scar.
You get to earn
the distinctive face scar
cool. During First Light. And yes, it is based on the Ian Fleming's Bond. So possibly the most Bond.
The most Bond there's ever been.
And they have all sorts of like harking to different like who's the secretary, Pomsby or whatever, Ponsonby, yeah. And there's some good interactions with Ponsonby as she's very prim and proper, and Bond in this game he's very off, like does what he wants to the extreme. He's polite, but he also is kind of an asshole.
Makes sense.
Zach.
Yes, Seth.
What have you been recently playing?
Seth, recently I've been playing Warcraft Chronicles of the Second War, Rise of the Alliance. So I've already played a bit of the first part of this mod. I would call it Warcraft Chronicles of the Second War, Tides of Darkness. I spoke about that many episodes ago, but this is a extensive mod of Warcraft 3 Reforged that provides a retelling/remake of the Warcraft 2 campaign. The first release was Tides of Darkness, the Orc campaign. Rise of the Alliance is the human campaign, and it's pretty good so far. It is like part one of a planned release they're doing. It is a small team that's all over the world. I know that some of their team members are located in the Ukraine, and when the war happened, they really struggled with keeping up to date with updates as you would in a war zone. But in the time since, I think a lot of the team members have either moved or have been able to get places that are more stable. But yeah, they recently, as of June 9th, so just yesterday, based on the recording of this podcast, released the first part of Rise of the Alliance. And it's really cool so far. It also does some really different things. For one, it puts you right at the end of the Orc Siege of Lordaeron from the end of the Orc campaign. So you begin out right with fending off swarms and swarms of orcs storming into Lordaeron as you play as Uther Lightbringer and the Royal Guard trying to protect the king and his son Arthas. And it does a good job at kind of merging the lore that you would expect from Warcraft and Warcraft 2 with Warcraft 3 and the later World of Warcraft established lore, which is something that this team, as they're called Lorecraft, have done a really good job with, is interconnecting these games. Because if you play Warcraft 2, the original Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness, and then play Warcraft 3, you might notice that there is some tonal change in the lore and the world. And then if you play World of Warcraft, you'll notice there's an even bigger tonal change. That's, I would say, closer to Warcraft 3 than Warcraft 2 is. And this game kind of merges those all together and kind of builds off the lore that is now what is established as canon in the World of Warcraft universe into the campaign of Tides of Darkness and now Rise of the Alliance. And this isn't the only release they're working on. They're actually working on a Warcraft 1 reimagining retelling based in Warcraft 3 Reforged, I believe called Chaos of War. That is still very early in development based on the Discord that I follow, but I'm sure when that comes out, I will grab it and play it. But Warcraft Chronicles of the Second War, Rise of the Alliance is available for free to download from the Hive website. The Hive is the kind of repository for Warcraft mods and StarCraft mods, and there's an installer you can use to install the assets. It's about 2 gigs. You do need to have a copy of Warcraft 3 Reforged. It needs to be the most up-to-date copy, and there are a few setting changes you need to make in your game settings before you install the assets, just related to terrain and stuff, I think. Overall, it's pretty easy to set up. It took me only a couple minutes. I did have to reboot a couple of, I had to turn off and on Battle.net once or twice or something to get it to kick. Once that was done, it started to work fine. But yeah, that's Warcraft Chronicles of the Second War, Rise of the Alliance, available for free through the Hive download page for Warcraft mods.
Great.
Well, to get into our episode, so once again, to reiterate, Ian reached out to us and suggested that we talk about Star Fox Adventures. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to get into the history of Star Fox Adventures. But before we do, I want to talk about our memories. Seth, I don't know if you have any memories of this game, but I actually do. I definitely remember playing Star Fox Adventures, and I think I played it, and I might be wrong. I don't remember if I played it at a friend's house or at a Walmart with a demo that was playing on one of the CRTs. I do have memory of playing some demo and seeing Crystal on the screen. Crystal's this blue fox character that's shows up in this game. I remember seeing her. I remember thinking the game looked very different from other Star Fox games. I was already familiar with Star Fox for the Super Nintendo and Star Fox 64, as we had family friends that owned both. But I don't know. I remember having this, seeing this image of Crystal running on screen and it kind of looking like Legend of Zelda, being this big green world and like having the staff. But those might be constructed memories. I might be thinking of a different game entirely and just assuming I was thinking of Star Fox Adventures. This was a very long time ago. But in the years since, I've of course learned about Star Fox Adventures a bit more and learned about the history of the game and its connection to a different game, which we'll cover in this episode. But Seth, do you have any memories of Star Fox Adventures? Do you remember ever hearing about this game, maybe even playing it?
I was looking at images of the Star Fox Adventures, and I think it was during the time where I didn't really remember a lot of GameCube games. I remember like the main ones, Metroid on GameCube, Pikmin on GameCube. I do not remember Star Fox Adventures though. I was looking at images and it looks a lot like a lot of GameCube games that came out during that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really recall Star Fox Adventures, and I assume it's you play as Star Fox, but you're on the ground.
Yeah, basically.
Is Falco in it?
Yeah, he shows up.
Good.
He's not like a playable character. He's just in it.
He's my favorite character.
Yeah, you love Falco. Whenever I see Falco, I think of you.
Good. Falco is the best of all of them because he is kind of a grump at all times. And I feel like if I had to fly a spaceship for my job and fight in wars, I'd be equally as grumpy.
Yeah, that's fair.
I would be like Slippy. Like Slippy is way too enthusiastic for fighting wars and flying spaceships.
Yeah, a little too much.
Too much. Falco, right level of grump.
Right level of grump and enthusiasm. He's like just there in between Wedge and Biggs.
Yeah, exactly.
But he's not Porkins.
I feel like Porkins is like Peppy.
Yes, Porkins is like Peppy. Now, to get into the history of Star Fox Adventures, the development of the game is a kind of a trip in its own right, but to level set people first, let's remind you a bit about the history of Star Fox, as the last time we talked about Star Fox was in episode 70, which is in fact many episodes ago, as we are on episode 341. Star Fox came about as part of a partnership with a company called Argonaut Software and Nintendo. Previously, Argonaut had worked on a prototype of a port for their game Star Glider to the NES, which they called NES Glider. They showed the prototype to Nintendo, but were advised to move it to the then in development Super Nintendo. They did just that and created a prototype that they called SNES Glider. This prototype utilized wireframe graphics and would become a prototype of what would become Star Fox. When presented to Nintendo, one of the programmers, Jez San, stated that this product would be as good as it gets without custom hardware. Nintendo said, yeah, you're right, and thus the Super FX chip was born and would become a chip that would be shipped with Star Fox cartridges. Two of the game's programmers, Dan Cuthbert and Giles Goodard, would move to Japan during development and work close with Nintendo's staff. As they weren't officially employed by Nintendo, they had to work in a remote room located separately from the rest of Nintendo, as Nintendo was afraid they would steal trade secrets. Apparently, and we've talked about this before when we talked about Star Fox, Miyamoto would visit this room and smoke, because it was the only place that he was allowed to smoke in the entire building. So he would come into the room, he would light up a cigarette, and he'd start smoking, and he'd give them ideas.
Star Fox plays as a third-person rail shooter. The game plays very similar to other rail shooters at the time, such as Space Harrier, Pokemon Snap.
And Pokemon Snap, yeah.
Well, not as... You can't control the Pokemon bubble, so it doesn't play just like Pokemon Snap, but Pokemon Snap is decidedly a rail shooter. Rail shooters play very similarly to 2D vertical shooters like 1942, but in a 3D format. You fly through different settings on different planets or in a different space setting where you combat a wide variety of enemies, often who take on the form of bug-like crafts. At the end of some of the maps, you battle a large boss who frequently breaks up into separate stages. Star Fox has 3 branching pathways, each representing different difficulties. This has not only allowed for replayability, but also offered returning players the ability to experience the game in a whole new way. I think there was one path that was like the best path, but it was the hardest path, and that got you to the secret boss at the very end or something like that. In the game, you play as Fox McCloud, who's an anthropomorphic fox, the leader of the Starfighter Squadron known as Star Fox, which acts as the aerial defense force for the planet of Corneria in the Lilat system. In the game, an evil scientist named Andros is exiled to the planet Venom, also located in the Lilat system, and soon he begins unleashing an army to wreak havoc on the rest of the planets. Commanded by General Pepper, an anthropomorphic dog, Fox and his team, consisting of Falco Lombardi, who is a bird, and Peppy Hare, a rabbit, and Slippy Toad, who is a frog, and also an over-enthusiastic frog, must stop Andros's army. Mind you, Pepper, he does not go. He stays.
Yeah, he's the general.
I think he's an Admiral Pepper, isn't he?
He's General Pepper, but I think he might be Admiral later.
Because he's commanding a fleet, which is ships.
Yeah, he's called General Pepper. I don't know why.
No, maybe he commands everything.
Yeah.
He's just in charge. He's like Grand Admiral. Well, that's Admiral again.
He's Grand Admiral Thrawn.
In order to stop Andros's army, you do so by piloting a ship called R-Wings, which are very reminiscent of X-Wings from the Star Wars, complete with the S-foil-like system where the wings adjust when they move from flight mode to attack mode. Star Fox was not only a successful game, but became a well-established Nintendo franchise. The first sequel, Star Fox 2, was not initially released. The game was developed for the SNES and was designed to be a direct follow-up of the first game, and it was planned to add new characters, new abilities for the R-Wing ship, and also branching storylines. While the game didn't release for the SNES, Star Fox 2 was officially released by Nintendo on the Super NES Classic Edition on September 29th, 2017, and also available on the Switch for the SNES Online.
Now, the first released sequel to Star Fox was Star Fox 64 in 1997, which not only took some of the elements from the canceled Star Fox 2, but also kind of works as a reboot, reimagining of sorts of the original Star Fox and the characters and the gameplay. Now, this is the part of the story where we would tell you that the development of Star Fox Adventures began because Nintendo knew they were going to release a new console, the GameCube. It wanted to have a new version of their successful Star Fox series, but that's not how the story goes. In fact, the story goes a little differently. It goes back to when Star Fox 64 was released. In 1997, the company of Rare released a game called Diddy Kong Racing. Phil Tossell, who was an engineer for the company, started to develop ideas for a new game that he wanted to create for the N64. Tossell had actually only recently joined Rare, per an interview he gave with Time Extension, having only just graduated college that year.
After Diddy Kong Racing was launched, the team that developed it were split into two groups. One group would go to work on the game Jet Force Gemini, and the other would work on a new title that would eventually become known as Dinosaur Planet. According to Tossell, the ideas for the game changed a lot. One early idea featured the character of Timber from Diddy Kong Racing traveling to a prehistoric world. Rare eventually settled on two protagonists called Saber and Crystal, which you would be able to swap out at any time using something called the Swap Stone, which that needed work.
Yeah, a little work there.
And the magical runic power of the Swap Stone. Just swappy.
Swappy.
The game would feature an open world and was heavily inspired by the success of Ocarina of Time, specifically the use of cinematics. The game was ambitious and thus was set to be fairly large. It would have, in fact, required the N64 expansion pack and also was set to distribute on a 64 megabit cartridge. So for comparison, Ocarina of Time fits on a 32-bit megabit cartridge. But this is coming after Donkey Kong and where the expansion pack was pretty widely dispersed, so they were going to couple those together to make the game super big.
Yeah.
Rare worked on the game for some time, including having a demonstration ready for E3 2000. However, at the same time as all of this, something was happening in Kyoto.
Now, yeah, in Kyoto, in Nintendo HQ, Shigeru Miyamoto was approached by Takaya Amamura, the creator of Star Fox. Amamura wanted to produce a sequel to Star Fox, and Miyamoto liked that idea. He was like, yeah, we should do a sequel to Star Fox. Let's put one out. However, Miyamoto wanted the game to take on a different style. He wanted an action-adventure game, as opposed to the rail shooter style that had been the series norm so far. And just as a little note with this, something I wanted to make note of, it may seem like a serious departure going from a rail shooter to a action-adventure game, but keep in mind this would have only been the third game in a Star Fox series, as the previous game, Star Fox 64, had only just come out in 97, and also wasn't really a sequel. It's kind of like a reboot reimagining. So arguably Star Fox Adventures would have been the second game in this Star Fox series if you just pretend Star Fox 64 was a reboot. So it's not a total shock that Nintendo wanted to see how Fox and his team would fare in a different gameplay style. Specifically, if they were thinking this could be a long-term franchise, they might want to branch out and see, oh, maybe we can put him in adventure adventure games or RPG games. In a very similar way, they had already done this with something like Zelda 2: The Adventures of Link, where Link in that plays in a side-scrolling manner versus a top-down manner, which he did in the original Zelda. They realized it didn't work as well, so they went back to top-down, and then they changed it up when it went to 3D. But I definitely can see where Nintendo was coming from in wanting to change the style. For the game that Miyamoto was looking for, development began at Nintendo. However, Nintendo was working on a bunch of upcoming titles for the GameCube, and attention kept getting pulled away to different projects. They were working on what became Super Mario Sunshine. They were working on the new Zelda, which became Wind Waker. So all of these major projects needed the attention of staff, and progress would begin stalling on this new Star Fox game. Miyamoto caught wind of Rare's demo of Dinosaur Planet and realized something. Oh, there's a game already in development. That's useful. With E3 looming, Nintendo requested that Rare not show Dinosaur Planet at E3. And in fact, they scheduled a meeting with them. Nintendo and Rare got together in this meeting and asked that they merge Dinosaur Planet into the Star Fox title that they were developing. And Rare said, sure, that sounds like a great deal. And the result would be a game called Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet.
That's a mouthful.
It sure is.
The Rare team would travel to Japan and work alongside the Nintendo team to integrate the characters and lore into their version of Dinosaur Planet. With the game now being a Star Fox title and potentially having a larger market presence due to being a recognizable brand, the team would shift development to the GameCube instead of the N64. Along with this shift came other design changes. I just need to, because the game is going to be bigger, let's go to a newer system that we don't really know well.
I mean, arguably, the problem was Rare kind of knew that this game, Dinosaur Planet, was going to be an overly ambitious game. It was also going to come out in the 2000s for the N64 with a new console on the way. They probably weren't expecting this game to be a groundbreaker.
And now it's blowing up because of Star Fox.
Right. Yeah, they were like, oh crap, we need to do something a little bigger than just put this out on a late stage N64 title.
Going back to the merging of Star Fox into Dinosaur Planet, certain characters would remain in the game from the original Dinosaur Planet lineup, such as Crystal. However, the character Saber would be replaced with Fox McCloud, and they would probably not do a swap stone, or do they swap stone?
It's called the Warp Stone.
Oh, the Warp Stone. See, I knew they had to work on the name.
Yeah, they changed it to the Warp Stone.
The Crystal character was also slightly redesigned, taking on the appearance inspired by Vampirella and becoming a little bit more risque. I'm looking up pictures of her, and I don't necessarily see the Vampirella. She does look like what a 13-year-old boy would draw.
Well, like her, if you look at some of the designs for specifically Star Fox Adventures, she's wearing like loincloth and a bikini top.
Yeah.
That's kind of Vampirella.
Yeah, it's fair. Is she also a fox or no? She's just some random.
No,
creature.
Vampirella's.
No, Crystal.
Oh, Crystal is a fox. Vampirella's a vampire.
I'm aware of that. I get that Vampirella is. No, Crystal was also a fox.
No, she's
so
a fox.
They made a sexy fox for Fox McCoy.
Yes, they did.
And so now he could date somebody instead of having to hang out with his very over-enthusiastic frog friend.
Yes.
The name of the game, Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet, would also be shortened, removing the title that had no resonation with all of the people who would be buying the game, which is Dinosaur Planet. So they just said, what is making this game confusing? Dinosaur Planet. So let's just chop that off, and now it's just Star Fox Adventures. So they just completely usurped the entire game and made it a Star Fox game. A bunch of the development of the rest of the game would progress reportedly without much interference from Nintendo directly. After all was said and done, Star Fox Adventures would be released in 2002, and it would be the final game that Rare would develop for a Nintendo console and their only GameCube title, as they were purchased by Microsoft shortly after the release of the game.
And like really shortly, like I think a few days after they released Star Fox Adventures, like the official merger went through between them and or the official acquisition went through between them and Microsoft. Now, to get into the story, Star Fox Adventures is set 8 years after Andross is defeated by Fox McCloud and his team. General Pepper has asked the Star Fox team to go and investigate the Dinosaur Planet, which has recently been invaded. The Fox team takes on this mission because they are broke. And they also are kind of mercenaries in the Star Fox 64 like reimagining of the original canon. Like they're both an aerial defense team, but they're also mercenaries.
So they're like PMCs, private military contractors.
The Fox team is definitively PMCs.
They're like Blackwater. All right, after this, we gotta go take care of some oil for Enron.
Yeah. Now Space Blackwater decides that they gotta go save the dinosaur planet. So they travel there, and Fox lands on the planet unarmed because he is told to not have weapons on him, so not to provoke the people that live there. Prior to Team Star Fox becoming even part of this whole scenario, there's a character named Crystal. She's a fox, and she travels to the dinosaur planet in order to investigate the destruction of her home planet and the death of her parents. While investigating, she runs into like these creatures, and then is captured by something called a Krazoa spirit and is frozen in a floating crystal and placed on top of a palace. When Fox arrives, he discovers the magic staff that Crystal previously wielded, and now uses this magical staff as his weapon because he came unarmed to a planet called Dinosaur Planet. I would have at least brought a pistol if I went to a place called Dinosaur Planet. I feel like that'd be smart because not all dinosaurs are friendly. I guess Fox was caring more about offending people than being eaten by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. So
because he just brought a stick.
So he uses a magic stick.
Magic stick. And
a
he
magic
discovers
staff.
it on the planet.
Yes.
So he brought 0 weapons.
He brought 0 weapons. He was unarmed.
And he went by himself?
Yeah, well, the rest of Fox team I think is just in orbit.
They're ready to bomb the planet.
Yeah, they're ready to swoop in.
This is like a Star Trek Away mission where it's like, why don't you go down there, see how bad it is, and then come back and we're just gonna nuke the place.
Yeah, exactly.
They do have those big bombs. Like they could drop a couple of those.
Yeah. The ones that
the big boys. Screen clears.
Now, gameplay in Star Fox Adventures is actually very similar to Legend of Zelda in that you control a character in third person as you explore different locations and are required to do different tasks to progress. Beyond that, though, there is currency that you use to purchase items and equipment. The health is divided into 4 segments that kind of look vaguely like hearts. You can jump, but you can't actually jump when you press any buttons. You only jump when you get close to the edge of a platform, which is directly from Zelda. And there is a day and night cycle. The combat in the game is primarily melee focused. Fox wields the staff that can be used as the weapon. However, he also uses the staff to open items and solve puzzles. There is a magic system in the game, which you can acquire through use of finding special crystals. There is also, thankfully, an R-Wing segment, because it wouldn't really be a Star Fox game if they just didn't include an R-Wing segment. It would be probably a Dinosaur Planet. But yes, they did include an R-Wing segment where you can travel to different locations via your R-Wing. These segments are on-the-rail shooters where you have to dodge obstacles, blast at enemies. Before you can travel in your R-Wing, you do have to collect fuel cells, and once you travel between an area, fuel cells aren't required to travel back between those areas. So before you travel from one place to the next, you need to allot a certain number of fuel cells. Once you have enough, you can travel in your R-Wing, and then you can just go back and forth at your leisure. But yeah, at least there is an R-Wing segment, which is nice. Now, Seth, how did Star Fox Adventures do?
It's a rare game, so it did well. The game sold pretty well, with over 200,000 copies selling in Japan after its release. By 2006, it had sold upwards of 800,000 copies in the US and raked in an estimated $30 million, which back in 2006 meant something. It was made a player's choice game, which were reserved for games that sold over 250,000 units. The reviews were a bit mixed on the game. IGN was one of the more positive reviewers. Danger, or if it's IGN positive review, watch out. But they gave it a 9 out of 10 and compared the game to Zelda. Jeff Keighley of Entertainment Weekly noted the game had beautifully rendered environments. The publication GameSpot also noted that while the combat was simple, it was still good looking. That's what they say about me. Edge would rate the game 6 out of 10, Nintendo Life a 7 out of 10, and EGM a 7.17 out of 10 because EGM just has to be weird. Criticism was also lobbed at the game for being such a departure from the Star Fox style. In the same IGN review that gave the game a 9 out of 10, reviewer Matt Casamassina noted that the fans expecting a true Star Fox experience akin to the older games are in for a disappointment. I just have to say this to you, Matt. No shit. Like, Star Fox Adventures, and clearly, like, you can look at the cover box and you can see them wandering around on the ground. So yeah, I hope that no fans were like, ooh, I can't wait to fly my spaceship in this game that doesn't have spaceships in it. But anyway,
I mean, IGN is also the company that said Mouse PI had too many cheese puns.
Yeah, well, there's a reason why. IGN, you're on watch out. Though the guy that we met at PAX was from IGN, so we should try to get him on
We should. He was nice.
Yeah, he was nice. Despite that, the game, maybe it was Matt Casamassio. Star Fox Adventures would go on to be named as the second best GameCube game in GameSpot's ranking of the best games of 2002, which is so like they're not saying it's the second best GameCube game ever. They're saying in 2002 in the GameCube category, Star Fox Adventures is number 2, which is
still pretty good though. Nintendo had a pretty strong launch.
Yeah, sure, for sure. Rare makes good games. I'm not saying this game is crap. I'm just saying, first of all, IGN's review is crap, and also the comment of trying to experience older Star Fox experience in a game that's decidedly departing from what the history was is kind of a review that's not worth it. But anyway,
yeah.
Zach, what about the legacy?
In terms of its legacy, the character of Crystal would reappear in future Star Fox titles. In fact, she shows up in the very next title, Star Fox Assault, and would show up in Star Fox Command. She would also appear as a trophy and a sticker in the Super Smash Bros. Series. A more notable piece of legacy would be the fact that in 2021, a version of Dinosaur Planet from December of 2000 for the N64 was leaked onto the internet and is playable. This leaked build is actually really cool because it does a few things that at the time were mostly speculative. So for a very long period of time with the story of Star Fox Adventures, it was widely believed that the addition of Fox and his team was only made after the game had moved from the N64 to the GameCube. However, this version of Dinosaur Planet that was leaked is a notable build as it features Fox McCloud instead of Saber, meaning that it was likely put together shortly after the merging of the games, but obviously before they transitioned to the GameCube. It's also a very unique model for Fox McCloud. Apparently it is definitely an original model that they used for this version of the game, but it is playable to a point, and you can certainly find it if you know where to look online for leaked builds of games that were developed in the early 2000s. In May 2025, as part of a kind of ongoing project to recompile like every N64 game that's been on ever released, there is an effort in progress to recompile the N64 version of Dinosaur Planet and also finish it. And you know what? Have at it, fans. Fans do crazy things for video games. So I would be very curious to see what comes out of that. But it is cool that we can actually play the version that almost came out on the N64. It would be really cool if a earlier build, like one that featured Saber, came out, but I don't think that's available, at least not yet. Who knows? In any case, the history of Star Fox Adventures is a fascinating one. It is one that is definitely tied to one of our favorite companies, Rare, and that weird transitionary period between the end of the N64 and the beginning of the GameCube. And so, unless Seth has anything else to contribute to this conversation, we're going to get into our retro rewind. So Seth had me play Dangerous Dave. Originally released in 1988 for the Apple II, Seth asked me play the version for the DOS, which was technically released in 1990. Seth had previously actually had me play a Dangerous Dave game. He had me play Risky Rescue, which is listed as the third Dangerous Dave game, but it's technically like the 8th game. But we talked about that ages ago when we did a Fallout mods dedicated episode, which that feels wild. I know we sometimes do really niche episodes, but doing an entire episode dedicated to just mods of a specific game series, that is peak Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's good. We should do another one.
Dangerous Dave is the first game in the Dangerous Dave series. It's a pretty straightforward, pun intended, game, as it's a platformer where you play as a guy named Dave, and you have to collect items, avoid enemies, and go through doors. The game was developed by John Romero, who would later, of course, be one of the founders of id Software, creator of Doom. It was published by Softdisk. It's not that complex, but it was really groundbreaking for the time because it featured scrolling screens, which was a big deal. Scrolling screens were really uncommon in DOS games, especially platformers, so it's certainly impressive for the time. Whether or not it holds up is just a different question. I don't know if it necessarily holds up, but I think it holds up in its own right. There are certainly better side-scrollers that would be released for DOS later, such as Jill of the Jungle or even Commander Keen, which was an id Software game, but Dangerous Dave is just one of those games that's like, oh, this is very cool from a historic perspective, and it's still decent, but just not amazing. I would say it holds up in its own right, but doesn't hold up if you want to, like, I don't know, just play a random platforming game that's going to be fun. But yeah, overall, pretty good, holds up in its own right, is historical. Next week, Seth, you can play that game that I just mentioned, Jill of the Jungle, for MS-DOS.
Great. Zach had me play Time Cop, which was released in Japan and North America in 1995 in different months in the year, and developed by Cryo Interactive Entertainment and published by Victor Entertainment in Japan and JVC Musical Industries in North America. The game is based on the 1994 movie of the same name, Time Cop, but it's in fact a sequel to the film. In the movie, Jean-Claude Van Damme plays the main character, who I would assume is the Time Cop. I've never seen the movie, and to be honest, didn't get really far in the game, so I'm not really sure what the premise is. But Jean-Claude Van Damme is in the movie. Oh, he's not in the video game, though. They, in fact, use somebody else to be digitized as him. The game, Time Cop, is pretty popular for speedrunners, specifically with the speedrunners with the games done quick. Evil Jim, our friend of the show, and who's been on an episode in the past, he maintains a world record for the game, but the game is bad. It's bad. It's not a good game. Evil Jim would also say that the game is bad. He hates it. He has a world record in it. He still hates it. The movements are janky. There are a ton of situations like the one that I got in when I was playing where I got caught being kicked from an enemy back to another enemy, and so on and so forth. It's just not a good game. I wouldn't recommend it. It does not hold up. Avoid this game unless you want to play it for the hee-haws. Next week, Zach, you could play Universal Soldier for the SNES, a game that has something in common with Time Cop.
Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Correct.
Nice. You should just keep giving me Jean-Claude Van Damme games.
I found a website. It's called Top of the Heap, game starring Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for listening to today's episode. Thank you, Ian, for the recommendation. Again, hopefully we did Star Fox Adventures justice. And if you have any memories of playing Star Fox Adventures or any thoughts about the history of the game or interest in Star Fox in general, let us know, and you can do so by emailing us at classicgamingbrothers@gmail.com. We're available wherever podcasts can be found via Podbean, iTunes, or iHeartRadio. We're available on social media. Look us up, Classic Gaming Brothers, CG Brothers Pod. We're available on Patreon. We're available on YouTube. Like and subscribe. And we're also available, of course, on our website, www.classicgamingbrothers.com. Now on a new platform, because we recently migrated it to a different platform. Anyway, Seth, am I forgetting anything?
Don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother.
I've been Seth.
And I've been Zach.
And we've been the Classic Gaming Brothers.
That's right.